Hey, it's 2 in the morning and I'm hard at work. I have something to share with you and I want to make sure that I'm clear about this. So let me do it like this. Have you ever heard someone say that they have prayed? Like say they got enemies coming at them or however, and they have prayed for God to break the teeth of their enemy. Have you ever heard? Look, I've heard that. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard somebody say, well, David prayed for the teeth to be broken, and so I'm praying for the teeth to be broken too? Let me warn you. Let me warn you. That is called a prayer of imprecation. Imprecation, imprecation. And that is dangerous and it is a no for Christians. Okay, so let me explain. That is a curse. That is a prayer curse. And so here's the deal. Back when David was alive, King David was alive, Jesus wasn't on the earth. Jesus had not yet come down and taught the way he did. So David had he was poetic. He was a writer. He wrote songs. He wrote words, poetic words, and his stuff was recorded for as psalms for us, right? But what you see in these different, like, is just to give you examples, Psalm chapter 7, Psalm chapter 55, and Psalm chapter 69. In each of those Psalms, David was going through something. Like he was like in one of those Psalms, he was dealing with a friend who he realized was treacherous, In another one of the Psalms, he was just dealing with the fact that people were coming against him. And he's like, Lord, I didn't do anything to them. I didn't start this, and so he was basically asking God to deliver him, but he was not intentionally cursing anybody. Like for example, in Psalm chapter 55, I think it's verse 9, one of the things he said was that their tongue be divided. I don't know, depending on what translation that you read, I don't know if that's the one where he said break the teeth, or I'm not sure, but I definitely know he said that he prayed that the tongue be divided. But in praying that, what he was asking was that their plans be confused. See, God's words say that Jesus said that a house divided cannot stand. And Amos said that how can two walk together unless there's agreement? So when David prayed, and David did not know Amos, and David had not yet met Jesus, so how could he have known, like that? But what David was saying was, he was praying for their plans to be destroyed, basically. Anyway, so that prayer of imprecation, which is a prayer, a curse, basically a prayed curse. We as Christians are not supposed to pray those types of prayers where we're cursing somebody else. You're not to pray that somebody's teeth is broken just because David did. So here's my example. Here's my case in point. Jesus knew he was getting ready to die. It was time. And so he was headed to Jerusalem. He had to pass through Samaria. He had sent his disciples in to go find a place for all of them to stay as they're traveling, right? And the Samaritans, just because he was going to Jerusalem, he was like, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. They refused, right? And so James and John, the two brothers, the sons of Zebedee, who Jesus called the sons of Boanerges, meaning the sons of thunder because of their fiery tempers, they said to Jesus, shall we call down fire upon them and destroy them? Shall we call down fire from heaven and destroy them? Now, some of the older manuscripts say that, but not all of the translations say that, but it'll be at the bottom, right? So yeah, they was like, shall we call now? They was upset, they was like, shall we? And Jesus rebuked them. He said, you don't even know what type of spirit is in you. He rebuked them. He said, I did not come to destroy men's lives, but I came to save them. He rebuked them. And then they went to a whole nother city and stayed. Now, where would James and John get that idea from? That they can call down fire from heaven to destroy? Where would they get that from? Let me tell you. They got it from Elijah. In 2 Kings chapter 1, I think it's like verses 10 through 15, I don't remember why these captains were sent. It's something about a king, but this first group with his 50 men was sent, and they was like, man of God, some whatever else they said, and Elijah was like, you know what, let me just read it to you. How about that? 2 Kings chapter 1, starting at verse number 10. It says, Elijah answered the captain. Well, let me go verse 9. Then he sent to Elijah a captain with his company of 50 men. The captain went up to Elijah, who was sitting on the top of the hill, and said to him, man of God, the king says, come down. Elijah answered the captain, if I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. Then fire fell from heaven and consumed the captain and his 50 men. At this, the king sent to Elijah another captain with his 50 men. The captain said to him, man of God, this is what the king says. Come down at once. If I'm a man of God, Elijah replied, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. Then fire of God fell from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. So the king sent a third captain with his 50 men. The third captain went up and fell on his knees before Elijah. Man of God, he begged, please have respect for my life and the lives of these 50 men, your servants. See, fire has fallen from heaven and consumed the first two captains and all their men, but now have respect for my life. The angel of the Lord said to Elijah, go down with him. Do not be afraid of him. So Elijah got up and went down with him to the king. So in that is 1 Kings chapter 1. I started at verse 9. I don't remember where I stopped at. It was a little bit past verse 15. But the deal is, Elijah lived long before Jesus came to the earth. Okay, he lived long before Jesus gave those instructions. All right, so now here we are today. Jesus has come to the earth. We got his instructions. He has given the rule. And so for us to now, any one of us Christians, believers, to now want to claim, well, David said, break the teeth, or David said, divide the tongue. So that's what I'm going to pray for my enemies. You're wrong. Jesus rebuked his disciples. He rebuked them for that attitude, and he said, you do not know what spirit you have. So I just wanted to put this out here, and I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of this, because sadly I have heard some leaders speaking like that and speaking it to the congregation. And back when I heard it some years ago, I heard it and I was like, oh, okay, because I didn't know those verses either. Although I knew that I'm not supposed to curse, I'm supposed to bless. So I kind of sat with that a little bit, and I was like, Lord, David, huh? But I never got into that place where I felt like, that's what I had to how I had to respond. And if I ever did, oh Lord, forgive me. Forgive me. I repent if ever I've gotten so angry with somebody that I felt like I needed to speak like that. Because I now know and understand how your word feels about it. And I'm sharing this with you guys because listen, all I know is Jesus said in the last day that there's going to be many who will come to him and say to him, Lord, Lord, did I not prophesy in your name and preach and do many powerful works in your name? And he's going to say to them, get away from me. I never knew you. And I know that I don't want to experience that. And I don't want any of you to experience it either. So I'm sharing that, you do not want to pray the prayer of imprecation. That is a curse prayer. You don't want to pray curses on anybody. Yes, David said some things out of hurt and anger. Hurting people hurt people. David said some things out of hurt and anger many, many, many years ago before Jesus came to earth. And Elijah called down fire out of heaven. He also, one of them, I think it was Elisha, sent bears up against these boys that was teasing him. So look, they did that in the Old Testament, but with this New Testament. And New Testament, Jesus gave us some rules. And listen, you don't want to do that. I'm just saying. All right, I gotta go. I gotta finish working. Bye.